All right, here's the slides with the audio for the first set of tobacco use slides. I broke it up into two because it's kind of long, just to give you guys a break if you need it. So this is the first one. We're going to go over the history and some of the details about how tobacco became a problem in the US and how we're trying to prevent its use. So let's go through. Uh, First of all, we're going to talk about the history of tobacco. So tobacco's been around for a long time. It started in the 6000 BC. Christopher Columbus brought tobacco back to Europe. It got popular in Europe, and then during the Revolutionary War, uh, the U.S. made a lot of money off tobacco to pay for the revolution. 1826, we found nicotine. 1847, Philip Morris, that's the Marlboro Company. They started selling the cigarettes we know, the hand-rolled Turkish cigarettes. And, an interesting fact is the aluminum company, Reynolds, they were also big with chewing tobacco back in the 1800s. So tobacco's been around a long time, but now we know how bad it is. So we're kind of dealing with this problem that's been kind of intertwined in our societies for hundreds of years. So more recent history, cigarette became a major tobacco product in the 1900s. The Camel was the biggest uh, company in the 20s. Then, Marlboro came up, and now we have all these companies that sell cigarettes. Um, Interesting, in World War II, cigarette companies, cigarettes were included in the rations for the soldiers because back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, people didn't really know smoking was bad for them. It was just the social norm for everybody, especially males, to smoke. So, just something to be aware of how our social norms change over time. So, cigarette ads have changed a lot over the last 30, 40 years. At first there was no regulations on cigarette ads. You could pretty much put whatever claim you want in your ad. You could target children. They were on TV. Um, tobacco companies are trying to make money, so they design the advertisements that were most effective at getting people to smoke. Obviously, this has changed a lot in the U.S., but other countries still facing this problem. Watch this YouTube video right here. It shows a nice little overview of how advertising has impacted cigarette use. So finally, cigarettes around for the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. 1964, the first big report comes out that shows that cigarettes are not healthy. 1966 is when they start putting health warnings on cigarette packs. 71 is when the TV ads were taken away. Um, and then 87, Congress bans smoking on all domestic flights. 1990, smoking's banned on all domestic flights except to Alaska and Hawaii. And now we have pretty strict smoking laws for a lot of places. Nevada's a little weird with our Clean Indoor Air Act. We're going to go through that, but most places you can't smoke indoors um, to promote health and avoid exposure to tobacco. So those health warnings we were talking about, the Surgeon General, they come up with warnings to inform the public if there's something that they shouldn't be doing. And you can read these. Smoking by pregnant women may result in fetal injury, premature birth, and low birth weight. Surgeon General's warning, cigarette smoke contains carbon monoxide. Smoking causes lung cancer, heart disease, emphysema, and may complicate pregnancy. Quitting smoking now greatly reduces serious risks to your health. So this is a health promotion strategy to put these warnings on cigarette packs to make sure that people, know the facts before they start smoking. So again, in the 80s and 90s, tobacco industry started marketing heavily in areas outside the US. They could see the writing on the wall. There was too much scientific evidence that smoking was bad for them. So they didn't want to stop making money. So they turned to China, to Indonesia, lots of countries in Asia, Thailand. So they kind of moved their headquarters away from the US and other industrialized countries because they knew they weren't going to be able to make as much money. Um, so now the problem is really growing in Africa, Asia, and some of the poorer European countries. So in the 90s, there were some lawsuits that people started winning against the cigarette companies. In 2000, California jury ordered the Morris Company to pay $51 million to a California smoker. And then in 2014, 36 states had smoke-free laws banning smoking in all workplaces, restaurants, and bars. And that's went up a little bit since then. But Nevada again is a little it's a little weird how our laws work in Nevada because of the casinos and smoking. Here's some more lawsuits. 88, 46 states, and four of the largest tobacco companies agreed to settle a case. So when they did this, they had to stop engaging ad campaigns that marketed towards children. The tobacco companies agreed to pay the states a lot of money for healthcare costs, so 206 billion over the first 25 years. Created and funded the National Public Education Foundation, who they use the money to reduce youth smoking, and they do a lot of health promotion programs. And so each of the states, they got a big lump sum of money from the tobacco companies, and Nevada used a lot of their money to fund the Millennium Scholarship. So if you're on that scholarship, part of the money came from these settlements with the tobacco companies. So now we're going to talk about the health impact if you do either smoke or you're exposed to secondhand smoke, how it impacts your health. Here's a YouTube video that you guys can watch. It just does a quick overview. But we're just going to go through some of the risks and stuff like that. So this slide shows the risks from smoking. So cancer, higher risk of head and neck, lung, leukemia, stomach cancer, kidney cancer, pancreas cancer, colon cancer, bladder cancer, cervix cancer. And then some of the chronic diseases related to smoking, stroke, blindness, gum infection, heart disease, pneumonia, COPD, chronic lung diseases, asthma, uh, reduced fertility, hip fracture. So overall, smoking is just really bad for your health. You shouldn't do it. So smoking and death. So cigarette smoking is the leading preventable cause of death in the U.S. I think people really forget about this because our social norm nowadays is everyone knows smoking is bad for them. Um, Nevertheless, there's still a lot of people who smoke or who are older and have smoked for a long time, and it's still the number one cause of preventable cause of death. So about almost 500,000 deaths are caused by smoking. This is due to cancers, COPD, all those conditions we talked about. More than 10 times as many U.S. citizens have died prematurely from cigarette smoking than have died in all the wars. Smoking causes about 90% of all lung cancer deaths in men and women, and about 80% of all deaths from COPD are caused by smoking. Some of the other health risks